it was fantastic. And I had the good privilege of serving on Sharon's advisory committee for a couple of years here as well. And I was able to hear about what your fellow students have had to say about your own Whittier experience and why you came here. And it's remarkable to me that it has not changed from the time I came here. Back, I started in 1962 here in class of '66, and that was what was absolutely amazing in a sense, because there's a commitment by the college to stay with certain types of programs. And one of the things that was of real value to me, and one of the things that we shared with some of the students when we spoke during the time I was here on the advisory committee, was the whole undergraduate program, the first 2 years. I don't know if Albert Upwood was here when you were here.
Oh yeah.
What year were you?
Well, he was not here, but we did Design for Thinking.
Design for Thinking,
Yeah.
D for T, and you know, that was the whole thing. And he was here, and he was lecturing to us, and
Did that make
that
it more
whole,
clear?
That's true. Actually, no, not really. Some things are not clear when you're here, but when you leave,
Yes.
all of a sudden it becomes very clear. And the structure of that I still use today. And my fellow alums say the same exact thing. And we actually kind of thought, the college should resurrect Design for Thinking and pull it out of that.
I
'cause
said that very thing
It was Whittier College Press that
several
produced
people.
it. And I thought I could find a copy of it. I swore
I
I
have
put
it.
down. It's
Yeah.
not very big, but the whole premise of this whole thing is just to really get you to think, and the structure of how to think and how language plays into it, how really a lot of your experiences play into this whole thing. And as young as we were, we didn't have a lot of experiences to share, and that's part of the point of the whole thing, because as you grow and as you gain more experiences, it kind of like puts a structure to it all. And then when you look back on something, the ability to be able to synthesize all the information, I guess is the best way to put it, because we had to always put together these 3x5 cards, we've had to organize them. That whole process all of a sudden becomes kind of automatic in a way, which you can't believe some of the things they tell you and some of the things your brain retains, and all of a sudden you think to yourself, oh my God, I can't believe I still remember that. And it just comes back. And it's not a conscious thing. I mean, I didn't consciously think to myself, okay, let's take out those 3x5 cards and let's categorize these things. Let's put them in a hierarchical structure. It just kind of comes out. I don't know about your experience, but I've been in meetings and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, I've got to think on my feet here. Let's see, here we go. And all of a sudden it just flows. And it becomes second nature to you. So that's part of what, in terms of one of the most positive things about my educational side, all right? Now, a little bit about the non-educational side, which was, Paul Smith was a president of the college at the time, and the students, and Dr. Paul, as we called him, the president of the college at the time, sometimes didn't see quite eye to eye on things. And we actually ended up demonstrating in front of his house one night, for example, and he was a very dramatic type of person. He comes out with a blanket and a shawl over his head, and it's a cold evening, and he's greeting us as he always does with a big smile on his face. And he totally, kind of tries to disarm people that way. That was kind of the way he operated. But that was kind of one of my memorable experiences. So I'll keep it short, Linda. So that's right. I'll leave it at that.
That was good. That was great. All right. Well, Randall Davidson, our next speaker, was very involved in Whittier in a lot of different ways. He had his society. He was a Saxon. He was on what was called the Board of Governors, was it?
Yeah,
Student government.
body, government.
Which
What's
now,
it called now?
It evolves even now since we've been here. It just it
It
keeps
was
changing
called
its names.
Co-Curriculum Committee in my day, when I was on that committee.
But Randall's, one of his favorite memories is the fact that this building was actually some type of a rec room with a slanted roof, and that dorm was all females. and they would climb up the lattice, get onto the roof, and have their little tete-a-tetes
Parties.
with the girls in the dorm would come out onto the roof with them,
And the RA
They
lived
just-
right here, so we'd be there.
yes.
there.
Then later he got to be a very hard-nosed RA, right? He expelled more people than any other RA, so that's one of his,
Yeah, we had a party.
kind of a
Had a
dichotomy.
little party problem in Johnson back then.
Well, would you like to start, you can further enhance your memories?
Yeah, I just, Design for Thinking, you just triggered so many memories.
It does. when
They
you say
don't
that.
have that class anymore.
No.
I understand that something similar is in its place, but to this day, I use 3x5 cards, which maybe you have e-cards or i-cards now, I don't know, but those habits were developed here at the college. I really think I honed my writing skills here, which is what Design for Thinking was all about. At a bigger school, I don't think they do as much writing, and I hope you all practice and do as much writing as you can, as I do notice out in the real world these days some atrocious writing skills. Maybe people write too much email or they abbreviate too many things, I'm not sure, but one of the things I look for when I'm hiring people is, can they write? Can they express themselves orally and verbally? Yes, I was a Saxon. I had a blast as a Saxon. I was in AOKP. I meleeed all over the campus. I was in choir. I'm essentially wearing what was then the choir uniform and my Whittier tie. I was briefly in the Asian Student Union because I studied in China. I learned Chinese at Whittier, which changed my life. I never thought I would study Chinese when I came here. I could not get the class I wanted as a freshman, which I think was German. And the only language that had an opening was Chinese. And I ended up moving to China 3 years after I graduated, and I didn't come back until 2007. So Whittier really shot me in a direction. And I was just talking to some students and saying the intimacy here is so incredible. My friends that I made back then, not too many of them are in business, but we're still very close, and we have been through marriages and divorces and children and tragedies and triumphs, and those friends are really cherished, and they're Whittier Quaker school friends, poets. So I don't know how much you want us further. You
Well,
want me
that's
to
good.
go?
That was a good background, good link. So why don't you begin just sharing about your international career?
Okay. Very briefly, I'll bullet point it as much as I can. As I said, I studied Chinese here. I took whatever class I could take that I thought was interesting, I took, which is the beauty of a liberal arts education. But when I was coming down the pike as a senior, I didn't feel confident in my business skills, so I went straight through and got an MBA, which is not something I would recommend, because I got into an MBA program handily. It wasn't hard, but most of my fellow classmates in the MBA program had been out working for a few years, and I was intimidated and handicapped against those people. But it was still, no regrets. In my MBA program, I focused on labor relations and organizational development. I like people-related topics. My goal was to work in Oregon, where I'm from. I missed the mark totally. I've never moved back to Oregon. I miss it terribly, and I'm still not there. So I got my degree. I was hired by a Taiwanese company, which moved me to Hong Kong. I was buying paper and exporting it to China in the good old days when the orders were all from Beijing. That company had me in a management training program, which I say if you're starting to look for opportunities, do look for companies that have a management training program. It means they want to invest in you, they're going to let you try some things, and there should be a mentorship component. Those guys had me doing all sorts of crazy things, which later, the connections came much later after I left the company. I then ran my own company for 3 years, which flourished and then failed. It was a family business, and you do learn a lot from failure, and do not be afraid to fail, although I can guarantee you it will be painful. Then I went back into paper-related business. I worked in stationery, which was all manufactured in China and exported around Asia. After that, I tried air freight. I was recruited to start a company in Hong Kong, which was air freight. It's a strange company. It's owned by the Swedish government. And I'm not a spy. But it was a very strange company that did air freight. And then we decided to move back to the US. The danger of getting into international business is you may leave your country and you may find it very, very hard to come back, which is what happened to me and my wife, who also, she's not from Asia, but she had a career in Asia as well. The deeper you get, the farther away home seems to be. So we decided in 2007 that we were going to move back to this great economy. Excellent timing as always. And here I am now working in LA for a housewares manufacturing company. Everything we make is made in China or Vietnam or Indonesia, but actually I did the statistics recently, it's 97% China. So that is my career in a nutshell.
The Whittier experience for me led me to do help me with all of this. And the direct experience that I have is I have a poli-sci major. I went to the Copenhagen program. While I was there, I took a class in development of European cities. I don't know if they still have that. And we had seminars in Paris and Berlin. And then I actually took a seminar that I had to get up early in the morning to cross the ferry over to Sweden and then take a small train up to Lund University because our professor was there. And we did that once a week. And he's the guy who wrote the textbook on urban planning. And I thought, when would I ever use this again? Well, guess what? In 2003, I helped put together an initiative within Cisco about how to utilize technology within buildings and within communities and within cities. And we had a request to put together a vision strategy for a brand new city of 500,000 people in Korea. And so the two of us, my colleague, now, he's a non-technical guy. He was a professor of architecture and land planning. He just happened to have a job, at this big technical company because he thought it was great, and they had to have buildings, they had to have people to house people, so they needed somebody with his skills. But the two of us got together, and so we did this, and we made a presentation. That city is now under construction in Korea. Right? And we did the same thing for city of 30,000 in Shanghai, just adjacent to Shanghai, and also one in China as well. There's a new city in China. And that same strategy, that same program is now being utilized to develop a new city in Saudi Arabia. We have 6 cities in Saudi Arabia. Right? And the Whittier education part of this whole process, I never thought I'd use all that social and that poli-sci background on putting this together. And when we were developing that vision and strategy for that city, it just came out because I don't know for your poli-sci majors here, I don't know if they still emphasize it. But anytime on any of my tests, they always taught me, what is the social impact? What is the economic impact? okay, what is the impact? And we had a list of about 5 things. I can't remember the rest of it, but we just started listing those impact areas. And that's how we came up and developed this. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Take that and generalize it, do this whole thing. So sorry, Linda, but anyway, I want to just show and tell everybody the opportunities are there. And the biggest thing about my Whittier experience is that it taught me just to just go with the flow and take advantage of those opportunities out there. So anyway, thanks guys.
Well, one thing I think that all of these young people are probably thinking about is like, how long does it take to get into international business? I know that both of you, I mean, you kind of jumped right in 3 years after you graduated. You said you were already in it. Yours kind of evolved over time. What do you see today in the young people that are in your firms, the people that are new grads or come out of MBA programs, and if they have an interest in international business, and you can tell a lot of these people have that emphasis, what is the path to actually get engaged in that for today?
Well, it all depends how you define international business. Everything is much more international today than it was 25 years ago. Back then, and maybe you can speak more to it, a lot of people sort of moved to international at the end of their careers. That was somewhere that you would graduate to, and I found when I was overseas, a lot of, right after school, a lot of my counterparts were much older than me, that were with bigger companies. They had already put their time in the U.S., 10 or 20 years, and I was fortunate in some ways that I fast-tracked out. And I think one of the reasons I fast-tracked is I went with a foreign-owned company, and I also went with a medium-sized company. There wasn't a lot of people above me who wanted to do the same thing. So that when you're building your strategy, you should have a strategy when you go to look for work. You should think what type of company you want to work for. If you want to work for a Cisco with 72,000 employees, then you need to package yourself and prepare yourself to interview and offer that company, make an offering to that type of company. But a smaller company, like where I work now, it's a $150 million company. It's only 350 employees. Your access to the top is going to be much quicker. Now, I work for a family-owned business. I will never run the company. I know that. But I kind of like that. So if we lose a lot of money, it's their problem, not mine. Maybe I'll have to find a job. But I work for an owner. And that is my first job out of school. Actually, I worked for the owner. So I was talking to the CEO as a 24-year-old, which that was great for me. I liked that.
Things are different today than when we were out there. The part of it has to do with you guys and your generation. The way things are going, the Facebook kind of approach, the social networking type of approach, the way things are done. There's actually, you guys have a greater opportunity because you're already immersed in this. Believe it or not, there are levels of managers today in many companies that don't understand the process. And so companies, big companies, are reinventing themselves to take advantage of this. All right? The most recent example is Google, where Eric Schmidt is back into Google again, and there's a reason for it. It's because the other CEO, the president, was too old in his thinking. It had to get back down to the Mark Zuckerberg level. Things are moving too quickly, a lot faster than before. And you gotta embrace all of this that's going on. I'm not talking about just the technology piece. That is only the means, as a part of the tools. But it's also how you do things. And what this is up here on the screen, on the left-hand side, you can't see it, These are differences that exist between us in a survey, engaging employees to drive global business successes, insights into this author's what's working in research from 2007. And the attitudes of employees in the United States versus China, United Kingdom, and Brazil. And by the way, if you want to ask yourself, why Brazil? If you're not in international business already, Brazil is one of the BRIC countries, the B in the BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, the four countries whose economies are expected to be leading economies within the next, between 2015 and 2020. If you're not aware of that right now, you should be. All right? So, but the difference is, if you look at what's going on in terms of what their expectations are versus what people in the U.S. Expectations, the sense of personal accomplishment, paid, fair pay kind of thing, a lot different than somewhere on the left-hand side. If you look on the right-hand side, opportunities for training over there. And that's one of the things that I do. Right now what I do is I still continue to train Cisco employees about their company, their own business, the entire industry itself and what's going on. And so there are significant similarities between these other countries versus what's over on the US side. And so transfer what you have today. What you want to do is you want to look for a company that's really embracing all of this. Because you guys are fresh out of school, you're using it, keep those tools. You don't want to go a step backwards and join a company all of a sudden that says, that asks the question, well, what good is the iPhone other than making a voice call? Okay? Because you have to look at everyone and say, wait a minute, how often am I calling on an iPhone or any kind of phone these days? Ask yourself that. How many guys are actually using those devices to make calls anymore? Right? Very few. What do we use it for?
Internet texting.
Yeah, exactly,
Apps.
right? That's the whole point. And the same, the guys and people in marketing, if you look at what's going on the marketing side, it's all about utilizing those particular tools in marketing, getting a message across on Twitter. How do you get a message across in 160 characters? Design for Thinking thought about that. And this is funny, because remember those things that we had to write, the 300-word paragraphs that we had to write? It was all about brevity. It was all about using basic English. And when Twitter came about and all this stuff came about, I thought to myself, oh my God, design for thinking here at a much smaller scale. Because clarity of thought, getting your message across succinctly, that word was in that class, succinct. That was so powerful. So I'm telling you guys that this college, Whittier College, has given you guys all these tools, giving you the education and background that translates out there in today's marketplace, so you're marketable. And you guys got to take advantage of that. All right. So I don't know how many of you guys believe, but I want to make believers out of it. This is what's happening. And your own parents. And I'll be honest with you guys. As much as I talk about this stuff, you know, I don't use Twitter. I'm barely on Facebook. You know, it's not my generation kind of thing. And guess what? I still use a cell phone to make voice calls. Although that's changing. Okay. Because even my wife is saying, what are you doing that for? Just send me a message. Kind of thing. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right? So that's what I want to reinforce. So don't let anybody talk you into some kind of a traditional type of, okay, this is what you're going to have to do. No, stand up and say, this is what I can offer you right now. And that's what, you know, I would like to see you guys do. The student resumes that I get from some of the technical people on behalf of Cisco, I look at, they list a lot of accomplishments on there. Okay, some of it's great, and some of it's just mediocre. But the thing that I really look for is that objective statement right at the top. What does this person want? Okay, and then the nice little cover letter. The cover letter is very short, and this is what I'm looking for, and in hopes to be able to offer you. So those are critical things, and in as few words as possible. And in basic English. All right? And I've been teaching classes for over 10 years all over the world. And the rest of the world understands basic English. And I don't use slang in my classes, although these days, of course, a lot of people understand it, things have changed. But that whole premise of key basic words, you know, the list of words that they gave us in Design for Thinking is still with me today. And how do you express yourself in those few words as possible? And it's great because English is such an ambiguous language, and that's the premise for the class. All right, unlike other foreign languages. By the way, I'm very fluent in German because that was the thing to do in my day. You would take French and German, so I learned French only to travel in the Middle East. And that was not it. Linda?
Well, actually, with the time that we have left, I wanted to open it up to questions that the students might have on either of you.
Sure, yeah.
Since both of you, this question's for either of you, since you both are spending a lot of time overseas or have spent a lot of time overseas, do you, traveling and everything, do you ever see technology replacing a business trip? This is more just an opinion question.
It's happening today. The Cisco, if you're a CSI fan, if you're a 24 fan, if you've seen any of those programs, you see what's called Cisco Telepresence. It's very lifelike. It is, and I was one of the original demonstrators of that system. I still use it regularly today. They recently acquired a company called Tandberg, and Tandberg, all of their employees, they do not have telephone numbers. They're referenced by their email address, if you want to even call it that, their handle. It's their name, dot, last name, or initial at tandberg.com. And to reach them, you just key that in, and guess what? When it opens up, when they answer the call, it's a video call, okay? And the quality is excellent, and that's how they work globally. And they can put multiple people together, and you can all see each other on the same screen, those kinds of things. So that's exactly, and that's why I've not traveled in almost 2 years now. Everything is done over WebEx. I'm off to Singapore in 2 weeks. It's a little bit different situation, but I teach all of my classes virtually, and the students come in virtually, and business is being conducted virtually. And if you want to practice at it, just go on Skype and start talking to some people internationally. The hardest thing is the time zones that you have to deal with, all right? And for me, it's automatic, and it's just one of those things I've become accustomed to in all the international travel. When someone used to ask me, you know, how do you deal with the jet lag? I go, what do you mean jet lag? I said, I'm always jet lagged. Doesn't matter, you know. So that's changed considerably. And if you join companies that have tools like this, and you'll do like I do, you'll interview people, you'll ask them to go to a location, they'll sit you down, and we can just talk across one of these types of visual communications systems out there, or even across webcams, even so a lot of things like that. I don't know about Randall, your case, it's a
You
lot
know,
of business.
it's interesting, you guys are fortunate, I think, because we come from very different industries. And I'm feeling rather like a dinosaur next to you. I'm in a smokestack industry, and no, I don't think that type of communication can replace a lot of the communication that I do in purchasing and in engineering products. But what I make is physical. You know, that coffee cup, we make it, and so it depends on the industry. There is no yes or no, I think, to that answer. Is it more efficient now to communicate overseas? Yes. When I lived in China 25 years ago, a 10-minute phone call would cost $40 or $50. Now it's free. So why wouldn't you communicate that way? The amount of communication that we do is so much more than 25 years ago, when I first started working. However, the power of face-to-face communication, I think, is different than Skyping or sending texts or whatever. And I hope that it's not replaced by that, because I love meeting people in other countries. I think it's a difference to go back to Albert Upton, between understanding something and comprehending something. Yes, or hearing and listening. It's very hard to really fully comprehend somebody just by a two-dimensional communication. So that's my answer to that
And
question.
I totally agree and on the face-to-face side, I'm old school like Randall is. And I value my network of people that I physically have come in contact with, and it's that network of people
Yeah.
who have then branched out
Absolutely.
and have allowed me to grow and have allowed me the opportunities in business. That's what allowed it. But I gotta be honest with you guys, when you start looking at what is actually going on with the Facebook, with the Mark Zuckerbergs, with all the social networking, what's going on with the new development of new products and new ideas out there, they're done collaboratively across the web. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, how many times did your parents always come into your room at home when you were in high school and say, what the heck are you doing? Get out of here, go get some physical, don't you wanna be with friends? And you said that, and you turn around and say, I am with my friends. Right? You guys understand what I'm talking about there. And it's something that, my generation doesn't understand, because we expect that physical side. But the success of what's going on out there just says you don't need that face-to-face thing. Asia is, was absolutely, and Randall will agree with me, the physical thing, this face-to-face, seeing somebody's body language is absolutely important. And it is to some people still. But the young entrepreneurs that I've met in Asia, it doesn't matter
They're switched
anymore.
on.
So it's a generational thing. It is a generational thing. So it depends on what group that you're dealing with. And go back to Whittier's experiences in design for thinking. It's all about that context you happen to be in. And so just don't think to yourself that everybody is going to be accepting of all the social networking. You're going to have to put yourself in the context of, and Randall hit it right there, are you the listener? Okay? What are you in this respect? And so, are you the speaker, the listener? Put yourself in that context, and then shift your mode of thinking. If you're going to go after a particular job or position, that's what you're going to have to do.